Alright, so even though you've already seen the car in 2 videos, this is going to be the first formal introduction. So welcome everyone to my new daily driver. It is a 2005 Mini Cooper S with a 6-speed manual transmission. For those of you who aren't familiar with Minis, the R53 is the designation specifically for the S. You can get these from 2002 to 2006 in the United States. They'd already been making them for 2 years before that and selling them in Europe. But 2005 and 2006 are the most updated. They have a bunch of different upgrades all throughout the engine, suspension, transmission. There's a bunch of things that they improved on the car through the life of it. So if you're going to buy one of these, 2005 to 2006 is the year to buy. At this point now, I've had the car for about 2 months and I love it. It has been a great car. I've taken it on long trips, short trips, city streets, highways. I've taken it to Home Depot, I've taken it to the grocery store, I drive it to work, I've driven it to Atlanta. I've even had some people in the back seat. It works really well. I am extremely happy with my choice. There are a few drawbacks and we'll get into that as we go, but like I said in the last video, it represents a lot of firsts for me. So it's my first forced induction car, which is exciting. I really prefer supercharging to turbocharging. I've driven both and I've driven multiple examples of both. I'm just not a fan of turbos. This is my first 4-cylinder car. My wife's car, of course, is 4-cylinder, but it's not my car. So while I do miss the V8 sound of the BMW, it is nice to only have 4 spark plugs to change and only 5 quarts of oil and things like that. There's a lot of small maintenance things that make this car a lot easier to work on as opposed to the BMW or even the 350Z. While the transmission is not the smoothest manual transmission I've ever driven, it is nice and direct. I do have a lot of good feel. We're going to upgrade that in the future, but for now, I am really happy with it. But for right now, I just want to talk about my initial impressions. I do think it's a really good looking car. Yes, it's a little bit girly, but I think it's a timeless design. I think it looks just as good now as it did 20 years ago when BMW first brought this out at the auto shows. Speaking of which, there is a lot of BMW in this car. There are a lot of parts that are even labeled BMW. There's a lot of parts that I recognize from my E39. So really, this is the closest you're going to get to a BMW front-wheel drive hatchback. It's the only really BMW hot hatch. You can get the 1 Series and a hatch in Europe, but for America, this is our BMW hot hatch. So I'm kind of excited that even though it doesn't say BMW on the front, underneath I know that I'm still in the BMW family. We'll go on a drive in just a second so I can talk about how it handles and brakes and accelerates and all that. But for right now, exterior, I think it looks great. So let's take a look at the interior. While it's definitely not as comfortable as the E39 was, I do think it's more comfortable than my wife's Altima. I'm not crazy about the red in the middle of the seats. I wish the seats were all black, but really it doesn't bother me, especially once I'm sitting in the car. I can't see it anymore. I love the pockets in the doors. It makes the interior feel a lot bigger than it is. The car is a very tall car, even though it's narrow and short. So you still have a lot of room in the interior. You don't feel like you're cramped into it like it's a smart car. Everything in the interior is very intuitive. I love the little toggle switches in the middle. The placement of the shifter is perfect. The placement of the pedals is really nice. I love the center tack. I love that both of my cars have a tack right there, smack dab in the center. Speed, all the rest of that, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is your tack. So that does give it a very racy feel. Compared to an American car, the cup holder situation isn't great. There's only one big cup holder that's right behind the front 2 seats that I think is more intended for the back seats. But in the morning, I can sit my coffee there, and then there's 2 smaller cup holders in the front if you have like a can of soda or something like that. So really, you can function in this car. You can do your daily routine. It does make a really good daily driver. Right now, I'm getting just over 30 miles a gallon combined, and that's at 50 miles a day on mixed driving. But of course, you do have to run premium gas. But at an initial long-term review, I am extremely happy with the interior. It's comfortable, it's well made. Really, the only complaint I have is the squeaks and rattles, and it's a lot louder in the interior than it was on the E39. Of course, when this was new versus the BMW cost twice as much, and a lot of that money did go to refinement of the interior. So we'll be addressing that in the future. But for now, I'm really happy with all of the things that would be difficult to change. All the hard parts are there. The seats are good. The shifter's good. The back seats are usable. They're not super big, but you do have some leg room. So definitely not the biggest back seat in the world. But even with the passenger seat all the way back, you still have enough room there for a child. And if the passenger seats move forward a little bit, you have room for a normal person. I wouldn't want to do a road trip in the back seat, but definitely for shorter trips, you can get 4 people comfortably in the car without issue. Of course, this is a hot hatch, so it has a nice hatch on the back. The 2 back seats fold flat to turn it into a little El Camino, which is super useful. I've gotten a bunch of stuff in the back of this car before. Like I said, I drove home with a giant aftermarket exhaust in the back of the car without any issues. It has this nice little cover so that when the hatch is closed, you can't see what's in the back of the car. And even with the seats up and all of my extra tools in there, I still have plenty of room for groceries or bags going to or from the airport. So I have a lot of room in the car, or at least a lot more than you would think. So overall, a very practical car. I would say it's the most practical car I've ever owned. So from a livability standpoint, from a fun standpoint, from a value standpoint, I am extremely happy with my purchase. So let's go ahead and hop in the driver's seat and we will take it for a drive, and I'll give a little bit of a driving review. Of course, we'll get more in the future as I take it to the track and autocrosses and mountain roads, but we'll see how much fun we can have driving around town. Well, this is my second attempt of reviewing the car from the inside while driving around because I lost the footage from the first one. I have no idea where it is, so I just thought I'd hop in the car and shoot another one. To go over the interior of the car, I'm really happy with it. The seats are extremely comfortable. They hold you in well enough. They could definitely be better, but they're extremely comfortable. I don't love the red, but when I'm sitting down, I'm in the car, I can't really see it. I don't notice it's there. I think it's a little childish, but it is what it is. It's not something you have to have in the car. You can get regular black seats, which is what I would have preferred. The radio is excellent. Of course, I can't play any music for you for copyright reasons, but it sounds really good. It can get nice and loud. The quality is definitely there. The shifter placement is good. It's right where you'd want your hand to be. The throw could be a little shorter, but of course we can address that with a short shifter in the future. The steering wheel is a good diameter. I love having the tachometer right here in the middle. It makes a lot of sense. I have exactly what I need right there. I can go through and change a bunch of different parameters and look at my range or the temperature outside or a few different things. So it's a pretty nicely set up interior. Having the speedometer in the middle, some people think it's weird. Once you set your speed and you drive around all the time, you don't really look at your speed that often anyway. And I can have a digital speed readout here in the middle. As you might be able to hear, the interior is not as quiet as the E39, but this car is a lot cheaper than the E39. I do plan to add some sound deadening to the car, just to kind of address that, make it a little bit less fatigued on long drives and having that drone that's always there. It starts to wear on you after a while. So the interior of the car is very comfortable. The heated seats get fast. The heated seats get hot so fast. Faster than the E39, faster than the 350Z. They're excellent heated seats. I don't love that the sunroof, it doesn't have a proper cover on it, and you can still see through it. So if it's a really hot day, the interior will get hot and it will stay hot. So that's a little obnoxious, but at the same time, the AC and the heat are both excellent, and you can get an extra cover from the aftermarket to cover that. So that's something I'll address in the future. The ride quality is not great. It's a little stiff. It's a little bouncy. Of course, that's something we can address in the future with some different dampers to see if they can control the springs a little bit better. So it's by no means uncomfortable. It's just, you know, sometimes going over stuff, it jounces you around a little bit. So it's less than ideal. The brakes don't feel great, but I think that's just old crappy pads and old brake fluid with some new fluid and some new brake lines and some new pads. I think it'll really bring it back up to the level of what Mini originally intended the brakes to feel like. Same for the engine. It feels really good. We've got new fluids and stuff in it, and it pulls really hard, especially once you hit 3,000 RPM. It really wakes up. It doesn't carry that all the way to the top. It's not like a Honda motor where it's you want to rev it all the way at the red line every time. You can short shift this car a little bit and still be okay. But all of the inputs, the steering has really good feel. I have high hope for what we can do with the brakes. And the shifter, it's a little clunky in the morning. You know, it's not the most perfect smooth shifter in the world, but it gets the job done. And when I change gears, I can definitely tell I'm in gear. You just don't want to kind of overdo it. It's really the getting it in the first gear is the problem. Once you're second, third, fourth, it feels pretty good. So overall, I am extremely happy with the car. I think it's going to make a great daily driver for me. I have really no complaints about the interior of the car other than some small things that I can fix. So it's definitely not something that I'm worried about. Well, that's it for the test drive. So if you guys have any questions, of course, you can drop those in the comments below or message me about the car. Hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next week, and we're going to start modifying this car.